Jon Cooper Ourlads Guide to the NFL Draft, joining us today on a Friday as we head to the weekend. Jon, thank you for your time. Paul and Craig also, of course, with me too. I would like to get your thoughts, first of all, on the championship games. Yes, we'll discuss draft prospects or whatever, but your thoughts about Washington, Philadelphia, and then the Buffalo Bills in Kansas City against Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Well, first of all, Buffalo and Kansas City, that should be a great game. I watched obviously the Baltimore game. I thought Baltimore was the better team, but you can't be minus 3 in the turnover ratio and expect to win that game. You take one back and they would have, I think the Ravens would have won that game. So Buffalo's defense is vulnerable, in my opinion. I think Kansas City will be able to move the football. It's just a matter of how well Kansas City can do against, Buffalo can do against Kansas City's defense, which is starting to play pretty well. But there's some weaknesses there. I actually think it could be a high-scoring game.
Jon, what do you think about just looking back at the draft classes of I think especially when it sticks out about Philadelphia and Washington, they both kind of hit it out of the park this past year, and here they are in the NFC Championship game.
Well, yeah. I mean, Washington, what did they have, 3 wins last year? A tie?
Yeah.
And they draft Jayden Daniels to get a new coach, a new system, new coordinators, and they play great football. Their defense was good, but obviously Jayden Daniels is very, very special. We liked him. He was our top quarterback last year, but I'll tell you what, he exceeded our expectations. We didn't think he would necessarily lead Washington into the playoffs, but boy, his accuracy is just tremendous on the deep ball. Some of those balls he throws are just fantastic. I think he is truly a generational talent.
Jon, we saw Quinshon Judkins declare for the draft earlier today, so both the Buckeyes backs are heading to the draft. But a guy whose name I haven't heard a lot of and clearly has lost some steam, just I guess in general conversation from last year's Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon. Had a huge year a year ago. How do you sort of view how this past season went and what that means for him and his draft stock?
It's ironic. I was just talking about him with somebody, and I think he's in the Senior Bowl, and that's going to be big for him. He's going to have to if he shows something there. I don't know whether he had some nagging injuries, but we still think he's a solid football player. Right now he's looking more towards the, into the later second day, third day, possibly. I don't know, but it's a good year for running backs, and so he's going to find himself in a battle. He'll get drafted. I think he's a good player. I think he's better than what people are talking about, and he's one of the guys I'm really anxious to see in this postseason.
What do you think about Judkins?
Well, I like him a lot. I mean, he was part of a really good 1-2 punch at Ohio State. With Henderson. We like Henderson. His breakaway speed and maybe a little bit better, but Judkins is kind of a Mr. Inside. He's Mr. Outside. He can break tackles, but he has decent speed too. Good hands. Those are 2 really, really good running backs. I think Henderson might be a little higher rated because of the speed and the elusiveness. But they're both really good players.
Jon Cooper, Ourlads Guide to the NFL Draft, with us on 365 Sports.
Jon, we talked before about kind of the precipitous drop-off between the top 2 quarterbacks and kind of everybody else. But where do you see guys, because he's really small, like Dylan Gabriel fitting in, or Will Howard, who might get a jump from the last month of his playing and the way he kind of showed out in the postseason?
If you're looking for a wheeled cooler, this is the Arctic 52-quart ultralight wheeled cooler. I hauled it on a deck, I hauled it downstairs, upstairs, grass, gravel, sandy road, mud puddles, the whole bit. And I gotta say, it is pretty darn tough. I really do like the wheels and the tow handle. It's easy to hold on to, even when full. It made it 6 full days with ice present, still keeping cool enough temperatures to keep drinks cold. This is a great cooler. And if you're looking for a new wheeled cooler that tows really nicely, this is a great option.
Well, yeah, in fact, just to show you how much we are looking for quarterbacks in this draft, and I'm watching the national championship game, and we had been looking at Will Howard. We've been looking at some of the metrics. We've seen him come up, and we're thinking, oh, maybe this guy could be a guy. He could be the guy that could be the sleeper, and maybe somebody's going to take him in the first round. And I remember after the end of the first half, I texted the guy that does quarterbacks for us, and I says, he's making a case. And then later on, I texted him again, I think we should put him in the top 32. And then after sleeping on it, I said, let's hold off a bit before we jump on the bandwagon here a little bit. But we really like, Will Howard. We think he's I'm anxious to see, how he does, in this All-Star game. He's going to be in the Senior Bowl. Again, he's another one. And I want to watch him very closely and see how he does, how he takes the NFL coaching. Solid player. There's some other quarterbacks. Dylan Gabriel is only 5'11", and legitimately he is 5'11", so he's not going to be really big. But he does all the things very well. He makes all the NFL throws. He's another Senior Bowl prospect we're going to be looking at. Jackson Dart from Mississippi. He plays in a one-read offense, as they say, but he's been very accurate. And, he fell off a little bit the last 3 games. And we were kind of excited about him. And then now we're not so sure. So, there's going to be a lot of evaluating, a lot of going back, looking at tape, and, paralysis by analysis, because this is not a great quarterback class, comparatively speaking, to the other classes we've seen. Nothing like last year. And so some of these guys that, might be third-round picks are going to go higher. We think the 2 quarterbacks that everybody's talking about as the number 1 guys, 1 and 2, whether it's Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, they're guys that our grades would probably be more towards the upper middle of the first round, but chances are very good that they'll go 1-2.
What's the talk about sticking with quarterbacks here, John? Jalen Milroe, and just where he fits in the conversation.
He's a great athlete, very athletic. His metrics were good. He didn't have a great end of the season. I think the combine, rated him very highly as the number 1 guy going into the season. We thought he might be the best quarterback in the draft. His accuracy hasn't been the best. It's making some of the throws have not been, what you look for all the time. There's been some inconsistencies, I guess is the best word. But he is a very, very good athlete. He's a creator with his feet. He can make plays on the run. He can gain yards running. He's the athlete of the group. And so, he's going to get a lot of play. People are going to look at him very closely as a guy that you might take. I don't know whether he'd be a first-round pick. At one point we thought maybe he was, but we haven't made that determination at this point, is where we're going to have him slotted.
Is it his fundamentals? Is it something about the way he throws the ball? Is there anything you see there that might need to be tweaked, or you just let the guy be who he is?
Well, I think a quarterback coach is going to take him and he's going to break him apart, and he's going to look at the mechanics. He's going to see, why have there been some inconsistencies in accuracy? Is it footwork? I think there is some issues with footwork in terms of follow through that he has, thrown off the back foot maybe a time or two. Those are some things that a quarterback coach is going to look at. They're going to look at the lower body. They're going to look at the upper body. They're going to look at the coordination of both and see if there isn't some tweaks they can make to help him with his accuracy. I mean, that's something that Caleb Williams has a problem with. He's not an accurate passer outside the numbers. Those 35-yard throws that you have to make, those intermediate throws outside the numbers, he's got some accuracy issues on those. And, he gets some happy feet. Some of that is because of the pressure he's been under. And I think, that's something that coaches have to look at, getting guys to step up and make the throw under all circumstances.
How many tight ends would you say are in the first 2 days of this draft? More or less than 4?
I think 5 is a possibility. I think there's 2 legitimate first-round picks right now in terms of what we think. We think that Tyler Warren is a definite first-round. Well, both of them, Colston Loveland. We think those 2 guys are definitely first-round picks. There's a couple of guys. There's a good group of tight ends that we would say are really, really good second-day picks. Harold Fannin Jr., very, very good receiver. A tight end from Bowling Green. We're very high on him. And there's a number of other guys that that fall into that that category. I think Fannin Jr. would have been the guy we probably liked the best, of that group. Jake, the other guy that we think would be a second rounder, Jake Bringing School. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, from Clemson. Another very good receiver. He's undersized. He's got good height. He's only 235 pounds. But he's playing in the Senior Bowl, so we'll get a good look at him too. Those are the four guys that we, at this point, that we kind of like.
You mentioned Will Howard and a lot of others in the chat. Thanks for asking about him and Dylan Gabriel. How much do you think of Ben Johnson can help what has been an issue? Not only the fact he doesn't have a lot of time to throw it. You mentioned Caleb Williams. How much can someone like Ben Johnson calm him down?
Well, I think the first thing they have to do in Chicago is get some offensive linemen that can protect the passer. Because if you watched Chicago Bear film towards the end of the season, he wasn't looking downfield at the snap. He was looking to see who was going to hit him. He was looking at the rush. And, that is deadly for a quarterback. And, he was like a literal deer in headlights, in terms of the way things go. So you have to fix that problem first. You have to get some protection. And he's got to learn to play from the pocket. You can't learn to play from the pocket if there's no pocket. And that's been his weakness. He's made his bones in college with off-platform plays. Some fantastic Patrick Mahomes-type plays. But 60, 70% of his plays were like that. When he made a play, give him a clean pocket, he wasn't so good. His accuracy wasn't as good. And you have to be able to play from the pocket in the NFL. And so, Johnson said in one of the media interviews, he's going to take this team and tear it down, strip it down to the bolts, and build it back up again. And that's basically what you have to do with the offense, and Caleb is a part of that. We're going to have to take a look at his mechanics. We're going to have to fix him. We're going to have to get him in the pocket, and we're going to have to put an offensive line around him that can give him a chance.
So the running back position with two, not Grizzly, but two veterans in Saquon and Derrick Henry having marvelous years. You have Mixon and James Cook and Kyron Williams, and I can go on and on and on with guys that had a really good year. Is that position thought of now differently when it comes to the draft? And there's some great running backs involved, a lot of what could be, who were great in college. Does that now have more value again?
Well, I think, the NFL is a trendy league in terms of it's a copycat league. If teams start to do something well, other teams are going to pick up on that. And I think what you saw with Baltimore, and certain teams, that other teams that are trying to do that, the Chargers are doing that as well. They're trying to develop their running game, along with the passing game. And it's kind of old school. We're going to set up the pass with the run. And we're going to, the teams are coming up with these smaller linebackers so that can cover. They're playing with a lot of six defensive back sets. Some teams' base defense is the nickel, like Buffalo. Buffalo's not used to playing against, a team that's going to have two tight ends out there all the time. And that's why I thought the Ravens would do better in running the ball early on against Buffalo. Buffalo did a good job. And so because of that, teams realize we've got small linebackers out there. Let's put some big backs out there. Let's start running the ball. Let's start blocking these linebackers in space. And make them play bigger linebackers that'll set up the pass a little bit better. And I think you're seeing a trend as teams want big defensive tackles that also can rush the passer. And this is a great year for defensive tackles, too. So it's going to be a real interesting thing. You got great running backs, great defensive tackles, and you're going to see that trend. Hey, we know people want to run the ball. We got to stop them, too. So we got to get the right people in our front seven that can do that. And, it's a chess game. All the time. And the teams that are versatile and can run the ball and pass the ball, they're going to be the most successful.
What do you think about Nick Nash from San Jose State, who led the nation in receptions this year?
Well, to be honest with you, I haven't looked at him a lot. We've looked at other guys, a lot more, at this point in time. And we don't think it's a great year for receivers, right now. But that doesn't mean, it won't be. Our receiver coach has just released the guy who does receivers for us has just started to look at Nick Nash, and he's on the East-West Shrine Bowl list. So that's a guy that's on our radar that we've got to spend some time with simply because of his production.
So last thing for me, John, you have the East-West Shrine game that's in Arlington on the 30th. You have the Senior Bowl week, which, of course, gets a lot of attention with all the NFL connections, although the East-West Shrine Bowl has coaches from the NFL too. Which of them, both of them are really good. We had Eric, who runs the East-West Shrine Bowl. What in the order is most important? And I may have asked you this before. These all-star type games, the practices before the games, the combine, and or pro day.
I think the practices of the Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl are really important because you're going to get to observe NFL coaches working with these guys, showing them what we do in the NFL. And we're going to see technique that we're teaching in the NFL. There's a lot of similarities in the college game, but we're going to do some things a little bit different, in terms of what we want to do. You're going to see, the schemes are going to be different to a degree. Some of the techniques might be different. In other words, you're going to get a new coach. You're going to get somebody that's not your college coach. And, we're going to work with you on certain techniques. We're going to see how you respond to that. We're going to see you against some really elite personnel in some of these one-on-one matchups that you see with both the line and the defensive backs. We're going to see linebackers covering backside of the backfield. We're going to get to see this isolated. A lot of situations are going to be created in those practices where we can really get to see what you can do in those situations. That's why I think those practices are really important because they create a lot of situations like that.
I try to get questions from the chat room to you when we can. We've asked you a few of them. Ty Robinson, the big defensive lineman from Nebraska, pretty athletic. They had a really good defense. Your thoughts about him?
He's a big kid, real big. He's very, very physical, excellent playing the run. We like him a lot, and we're going to study him some more. We're not 100% sure of him as a pass rusher, as being more than a push guy, but the metrics say he's got the talent to be a good pass rusher. So we think, we haven't looked at every one of his games, but what we've looked at, we've liked, especially his ability to play the run.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Are you traveling a lot, or are you pretty much just stuck where you are? Not stuck where you are, but you're pretty much hanging around close.
I'm hanging around here. We've got 3 guys going to be down at the Senior Bowl. I'm not heading out this year. I'm staying home, watching it, putting together some things that, film work, things that I have to do up here.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate your time. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you.
You bet. Thanks,
Jon Cooper, Ourlads Guide to the NFL Draft. We'll try to have him on as much as we can.